In this video, I'd like to show you how to make a graph for your results section, sometimes called a chart in Excel, sometimes called a figure in research writing and reports, but in Excel it's called a chart. And so let's take a look at making a chart or a graph that we will insert as a figure into your results section. We'll take a look at these person who's trying to reduce the amount of cigarettes smoked per day. Here's the baseline in red. Here's their first intervention in blue and their second intervention in green. We can grab all of this data if we want to, and the first one will always represent X, and the second and anything following will represent the Y-axis. Now, if I don't choose all of it and just choose the Y-axis, it will default to the numbers of 1 through, in this case, 21. Let's take a look at what happens when I choose all of them and it's not a number. I'm going to hide these for a moment and just use all of these and make a chart. You'll see what happens. Go to the top here now to insert, and we're going to use a column graph initially, or a histogram, and we'll choose the first one. You can see it shows the days, Sunday through Saturday, for 3 weeks, and the amount of cigarettes consumed per day, with a high of 25 and a low of 0. And this is our baseline data, our first intervention, and our second intervention. Series is pretty generic right now. It's not telling me what's going on. It just says here's the series. And so it's kind of a blank generic name. So I've got these days of the week down here. If I just chose, I'm going to delete this for a second. I'm going to switch over to a line graph. When I click inside the graph, appears up at the top these chart tools. If I'm outside the graph, they're not there. If I'm inside the graph, we're on the chart tools. And so I can go to design and change the type I want. And now I'm going to go to a line graph. And there's my line graph. Same kind of deal. No surprises there. If I want to change these into numbers, I can either grab actual numbers or just not include the Sunday through Saturday in the graph. So let's delete this one for a second. Just grab the Y-axis, insert a line graph, and there I have it. So it's basically defaulting into actual numbers for each data point. 1 through 21 for the 3 weeks that we have here. So whether you actually have days of the week, for example, here we have, let's try that again. Days of the week in here. I can actually grab all of these, or I can grab the days and the data points. Doesn't matter. It's going to default to actual numbers, and I'll show you how we can get around this in a minute, so we can do some more interesting things. One of the things that you want to make sure you do with all of your figures or tables or any other kind of graphic that you're going to put into your paper is that it must explain what's going on. It should stand on its own, and this graph doesn't stand on its own. It doesn't say what it is that's going down. It doesn't know if these are 21 seconds, 21 years. The series is generic. The numbers up the left are Y column 0 to 30. Don't tell me 30 what. So I need to put some labels in. So let's put some labels in. Again, I click inside my chart. I click this time layout, and I've got some options here. I've got labels and data and the legends and axes and all sorts of text boxes. We'll show you how those work. So I'm going to go to axis titles. I'm going to choose the horizontal axis first and put my title below the axis. This will label the x-axis. I can go down here and start typing in here, or since it's already kind of marked and I'm not anywhere else except the top bar up here, the entrance bar, I can actually put in days. And when I hit return, days is in there. I'm also going to put in the x-axis. So come back inside the graph, hit layout, axis title. Now I'm going to go to vertical, and there's options here. I can do a vertical title. Don't like that at all. I can do a horizontal title, and that takes up, whoops, wrong one. I can do a horizontal title, and that takes up a lot of white space here and here, so I don't like that one either. So I'm going to get rid of that one and go to the rotated title. And that's pretty cool because it'll utilize the space up and down as I label that axis, which of course will be the number of cigarettes consumed. So I'm going to type in cigarettes consumed, and there it is. Now I could also go in here, just click on it, and I can change this around and start putting more spaces in or type all sorts of stuff if I want to change that title. So if I make a mistake, I can always fix it. So we're good. Yeah, probably too many spaces. Let's get rid of the space. I'll be careful there. There we go. Okay, so we have cigarettes consumed in days. Now we need a chart title or a graph title. And what's often helpful is to use the y-axis over the x-axis as a way to label your graphs. So in this case, it's cigarettes consumed, y-axis, over days, x-axis. So cigarettes consumed per day or cigarettes per day. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to go back to layout and chart title, and we're going to put it above the chart so it's out of the way, and call it cigarettes per day. Now our graph is starting to tell a story. We still have a generic legend. That doesn't help a whole lot. We can get rid of it. Just click on it and get rid of it, and that's fine. We're going to bring it back in a few moments. So the other thing we don't have in here is our efforts at intervention. Now a couple of ways you can do that. I'm going to show you one real quickly, and then we'll show you another one that's a little more complex. Go to layout. Oh, yeah, we're inside layout, and we'll use a text box. And for example, we could write our text box over here and start putting in interventions. And if I want to cheat, I can just kind of put a bunch of spaces in here, make it all the same box, or I can make new boxes. Now I have my intervention 1, intervention 2. I can label this baseline over here and do the same. Now, that's one way to do it. You can label it right on there, that's fine. I want to show you something that might be a little more fun, a little more complex. And so I'm going to get rid of what I just did by just going back. And I'm going to change the way my data is presented. I've got another, I'm going to move this section of numbers, oops, too many, and copy them over into separate columns, and then erase these. Now I have my data in 3 different data sets. The first data set, baseline, second data set, intervention 1, and second intervention here is the third piece. So this graph, if you remember, was only grabbing this. I can grab all of that if I wanted to and put a whole new graph in. Or at least I can select the data and set this. Select data, I right-clicked inside, select data, and I'm going to change this to incorporate not only columns D, E, or D, but E and F as well. Another way to do it is grab it all. In fact, that's one way. I can just type in what I want. I can do that. Or I can just grab it all. Oh, didn't like that. Now we'll try to grab it all. Here we go. Okay. Now you can see that my baseline is distinct from my first intervention and my second intervention. Now, I can add a legend at this point and say, what are these 3 lines? This is where it can come in real nice. Now, I've got to define them. So I'm going to go back here, right-click inside, select my data. I've got my generic 3 series. I want to edit them. Again, if I did this by hand before, instead of grabbing all of them, letting them define, I could go in and add a new series. I'm not going to do that though, because I already add them up. I'm going to add one later. Series 1, I'm going to edit that and give it a name, baseline. I'm going to go to Series 2, edit that one, and we'll call it nicotine gum. We could call it intervention 1, or this is a little bit more descriptive. And then Series 3, we're going to edit that one and call it financial penalty. And we make sure we're spelling everything correctly. Yeah, okay. Now, we've labeled them. Now we come inside of here and go up to layout and go to our legend and say, let's put it in there at the far right. And there they are. Baseline, nicotine gum, and financial penalty are labeled. We can put that in our results section as it is. I want to do one more fun step before we do that. I'm going to grab this whole thing and copy the graph. Now, I could go ahead and place it in my document. I'm going to do one quick step for fun and throw it into the Paint program. And I'm going to add a line. You don't have to do this. I'm just showing you what you can start embellishing this through with other tools. So I'm going to put a line in here. I'm going to put it right in here between the data sets, right in there. And then I'm going to do it again for the other one. Just to let people know, yes, there are different interventions. And I can grab that whole thing. I can select all of this. And just like I had before where I copied it. Now I'm going to put it in my document. And whenever I start speaking about the document, about the graph, then I need to have that graph on that page. So I'm going to choose an arbitrary spot. That makes sense. And copy the graph into the document. And it's going to come in a second. There it is. So here it is, cigarettes per day. And I'm going to put a label on this, call it figure 1. And I'm going to center that. And up above, I'm going to say, in figure 1, the baseline showed. And I start describing what's going on in my graph. Oops, went too far. Not where I wanted it. Let's pull that back. Not where I wanted it. I want it here. That's where I wanted it, not there. So let's still paste it. Still got it? Maybe not. Yeah, I think we do. So there it is. You say, oh, I don't want it way over there to the edge. So I'm going to tab over here, one notch. I can also change the size of my chart, etc. So now I'm going to put my figure 1 in here. Center it up, and then go up here and tell you where it's going on. In figure 1. And now I have that where I want it. If I need an extra space, I'll put an extra space in there. Probably don't need an extra space. And that shows what's going on. I can actually put an extra line in here, push it over a little bit, center it up, make it real sweet. So there you have it. That's how it's done. If you want a little bit more fun, complex stuff, I'm going to add one more thing to this chart. And that is another variable I'm going to add. And this is the number of times that a person resisted smoking. And so what we're going to do is we're going to select the data and we're going to add another series, this one right here. We're going to call it resisted cravings, and we're going to give it these series of pieces. And you can see that now we have not only the baseline data, the first intervention, the second intervention, but on the same chart, the number of times a person was resisting their craving during the whole intervention or during the whole study. So initially, baseline, they didn't resist at all. They did some resisting here. They really were fighting it because they didn't want that financial penalty in the third component. So that's another interesting little thing. Now, you have to make sure that if you put a second variable in, it makes sense to the scale that you're using. Now, obviously in this one, cigarettes consumed, this has nothing to do with cigarettes consumed necessarily. It's just how many times you resist the craving. So we can put in here cigarettes consumed or resisted. So let's change that to consumed and resisted. And that might make some sense. If it doesn't make sense, make two graphs, but don't go bonkers with a whole bunch of different graphs. So hopefully that's been helpful for you, and you can get an idea how to use Excel to make some graphs and then to put them in your document as well.